everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Talkoffame podcast. This episode, has been in the works for a long time. I'm super excited to be able to start filming this. And so today we're introducing Dawn Chubai. The second time's always a charm. Donna has worked in the broadcasting industry nationally on television screens for the last 23 years. And in 2017, she took those on-camera hosting skills and actively immersed herself in the dynamic realms of TV, home shopping, and live selling platforms, resulting in personal sales of over 30 million in retail sales for hundreds of brands across all communities. Dawn has proven uniquely qualified in media trained chefs, bartenders, sommeliers, interior designers, style experts, real estate professionals, athletes, and personal trainers, having hosting reality television, City Cooks, City Line, Breakfast Television, both in Vancouver and recently in Toronto, where BT holds the #1 morning show spot in Canada. While Dawn continues to work in the on-demand meeting trainer, in June 2023, Dawn announced the next level of professional developments for brands, sales representatives, brand ambassadors, and influencers. Drawing from her rich background as a media trainer and TV home shopping host, she launched Live Selling School and developed her signature home shopping method of live selling. As principal of Live Selling School, Dawn shares her professional tips on becoming comfortable on camera while also teaching the essential skills and live stream sales strategies necessary to convert more customers from in-person to e-commerce while utilizing a specific live commerce platform or exploring other adventures on social media. Dawn's home shopping host method of live selling is adaptable to all communities and brand e-commerce strategies. While Dawn can still be seen on the shopping channel in Canada as a jury guest host and other memorial gratitude, including hosting television in Vancouver and Toronto. Hometown Heroes Audience spokesperson, reality television, City Cooks, City Line, and in-arena host for the Vancouver Canucks. Dawn's professional affirmations include the National Speakers Board, Canadian Woman in PR, ECTRA. She's also a recipient of awards for the BC Association of the Broadcasters and Alberta Recording Industry Association for her debate jazz CD, New Chapters in the Old Book. Dawn's second CD, Under the Covers, was released back in 2014, which is, 10 years to this year, which is insane. But I know that is a very long intro, longer than I usually do it, trust me, if you listen to previous episodes. But Dawn, thank you so much for coming on and taking time to chat with us. How's everything going for you so far in 2024?
It's going great. I mean, we're only a few days in, but it's definitely going great. And thank you for that great intro. I could have said something really short for you,
No, it's
but
all
not.
good. Trust me, I really do long intros for a living, so don't worry. But of course, you've been doing broadcasting for a couple of years, and of course, we're a singer, are a singer. Like, do you still do singing to this day, or is kind of back in the past?
Not as much. No, when I moved to Toronto, 7 years ago, I'm back in Vancouver, but I kind of took a pause on my music career. It was actually my music career that got me into television. So, I definitely had quite a long and storied career with a couple of CDs. But no, sometimes, you move forward and you're doing different things. And so you got to kind of once in a while focus on what you're focusing on. And so what I'm focusing on now, of course, is my live selling school and training the next generation and roster. I'm growing that of live selling talent. So that's kind of taken up a good portion of my time right now.
Ooh, definitely. Like what kind of course, you started off as a singer, but then transitioned to broadcasting. Like, was broadcasting something you never kind of anticipated in being, or is it always kind of your dream?
I never, ever, ever thought I would be on television. That was never the ultimate goal. I worked, like everybody, I worked in a restaurant and I worked in an office but I always had my music. So I was doing gigs, I was performing at jazz clubs. And one day, I was performing on a morning show in Edmonton, which is my hometown, promoting my gigs. I had a series of Monday night gigs at a jazz bar. And they said, "Why don't you come and audition for our morning television show?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know. Like, I've never done TV before." And they said, "Oh, come on and audition anyway." So I did, and I definitely wasn't very good. So, I mean, everyone starts somewhere.
Mhm.
But they said, "Listen, we can probably teach you to do some of the things that are required of being on camera, but you've got a great personality. You already are used to being on stage. We probably can work with you here." So they did a little sort of mini training with me. They had me audition a second time, and then I got the job, and that was 23 years ago. So I think probably I was in broadcast long before you were born.
Yeah, yeah, like about 5 years later, back in
Well, there
2001,
you
right?
go.
Like, so it was 2001?
I said, "That's right." So there we go. Like, I mean, that's how long I've been doing what I've been doing. But
Ooh,
you grow from things, right? And
mhm.
so yeah, it's important for people to know that you can try something new and build up that expertise.
Yeah, right, like, it was 5 years before I was born. I was born in '06, so about 5 years after I was born, but trust me, like, time literally goes by so fast, I literally just keep track like, lose track of how long you've been in this field for.
Sure do. Trust me, the time goes by faster as well as you get older, but I'm so happy to be here today. That's for sure, because it is important to sort of try different things and to find out what people have done to get to where they're at, right? That's sort of how
Mhm.
people decide what they want to do.
Yeah, that's a part of life, right? Like learning and doing something that you never anticipated of doing. I'm so bad at saying things, but like, what was the hardest kind of part? Like when you got the role like for the broadcasting, like what was kind of like the hardest part for you? Because I'm sure it wasn't easy.
Well, no, I mean, like anything, right? You grow into a role. I was always comfortable speaking to people, so that wasn't the problem. But appearing on camera, which of course is what I not only do, but it's also what I teach, camera
Mm-hmm.
confidence, how to get comfortable connecting through a screen. The idea of not knowing how many people might be watching on the other side. I think even with what you're doing, right? It's like it could be 1, it could be a million. You never really know, but you have to be able to still bring your energy up. You have to still be able to communicate and to speak and to make sense and to be entertaining. And so that was kind of a learning curve for me. But actually that it was just really more of getting comfortable as time went on. I mean, I think right out of the gate, I was okay speaking on camera. So the learning curve for that would have been just again fine tuning the skill, and then of course learning how to interview and how to,
Mm-hmm.
get the best out of whoever you're speaking to, just like what you're doing right now, right? Your job is to interview me and to allow me to say the things that you think are gonna be interesting to your audience,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's kind of what I had to do as a broadcaster and what I continue to do.
Yeah, like of course, with being a broadcaster, you like a lot of journalists are on television for like about an hour, half hour to a couple of hours a day. Like they're on television 5 days a week, even maybe 7 days a week, depending on the news station. And with being on television, like you have to be comfortable in front of camera and also be okay with criticism following social media is what I kind of had to realize. Of course, back then there was no social media when I was like around that time when you first started out. So of course, like back then there wasn't as much social media to really deal with criticism as much as we do now in 2023.
You're not
In
wrong. So
2024. I'm so used to
no, no,
saying
no.
2023.
No, that's okay, I knew what you meant. But so it's funny, you're not wrong, you're totally right. So first of all, I'll unpack 2 fun little tidbits. You're right, social media, when I got started, didn't exist. We would, though, get people that would write letters. So the things that we would now get as, like, mean tweets or
Mhm,
just even questions would happen either someone would call or someone would send a letter, and I remember once when I first started in television, I think someone who was, I think, probably at the core a fan, like they liked me good enough, but they had some sort of issue with what I was wearing. So, and they felt like they should call me and tell me. So here's a person on another end of a phone, right? Telling me that they thought that whatever I was wearing they didn't like it, whatever it was. And it was hard for me, A, to hear that because you also don't know what to say, right? You don't know if you should chime back or whatever. And so if I relate that now to social media, which I was in the world of my industry, I was always on board with social media. I have all the platforms. I engage very much. My whole world in live stream shopping is very much tied to social media. But now it's sort of like if someone sent, with no profile picture, the little egg on there, some sort of mean tweet. It would be kind of like that. I would
Mhm.
say the criticism and that kind of stuff is difficult when you first get started in the business. And it certainly is never nice when someone says something unkind on
Mhm.
social media. However, the one thing you do start to develop is a thick skin. And I know that's something we hear a lot of, but you
Mhm.
also learn to sort of tune out the people that are they're not there because they like you anyway. They're there to try to egg you on. They're there to try to create some sort of friction. And so you learn very early on how to sort of block out that noise. And I think that's like
Mhm.
any advice I would give to anyone getting into any kind of business. TV, listen, at some point that won't even exist anymore. So let's what you're doing right now, any kind of thing on camera or on social media is learn how to step back and
Mhm.
go, I'm just going to do what I'm doing. They can like it or not like it. I'm gonna try to be a kind person. I'm gonna try to give good content, right? You're
Mhm.
not just there to be famous, trying to provide good content. And if you do all those things, you only have to justify that to yourself. And so that would be the advice I have for anyone getting into anything that's in the public eye is probably the short version of what I just said.
Definitely. Like that reminds me of like a little local news station here in Pennsylvania. The one news station has a kind of like a talk back where basically people call in, like or send voice messages. I don't know how specifically they do it, but they send in voice messages. Specific, like I think that's probably the only news station that does it around here in my area. But they usually people will call into the news station and basically will talk bad about some people at the news station about like oh how they dress, how they look, like how how their qualities are broadcasting are like that kind of you reminded me of that because I'm like, well, like of course with having, talk back with your news station or you have your number on social media for broadcasting. It's like it's crazy how much people watch newscasts and be like, "Oh my gosh, like I hate this person thing. I'm just gonna call them and tell them how much I hate it." And which I'm like kind of, dreading once I head to college and do a news station and receiving those calls. I'm like, this is not something I'm looking forward to once I head into
No.
this career field.
No, and I don't think, listen, I think even those types of news stations, there's pushback on whether you should subject your on-camera host to that kind of because what it is bullying, right? You're sort of
Mhm,
endorsing criticism, hey, listen, the one thing is if you're doing any kind of work on camera, you cannot be afraid of criticism. And in some cases, you should welcome it. Criticism, when it's constructive, is good. But also, what criticism, if you take out the mean part, but okay, let's look at someone had a problem with what I was wearing. Now, the kind of person I am, and I think to do this kind of work, you have to always sort of ingest things and
mhm,
sort of let it marinate and understand why someone might be doing it. So sure, someone had a bad day with it. But I also like think that, what, maybe this person had a point. Maybe that wasn't the most flattering top. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying
mhm,
try to look at like, is there something I can get from that criticism? Now, I might look at a picture and go, nope, I liked it, looked fine, her problem, not mine. I don't hate that person. I'm not going to block that person. She's fine. She thought she was trying to help me. So I always
mhm,
look at if someone is going to criticize. So even in that talk back program you're speaking of, I think to myself, well, if someone is saying something I can change, that I should change, and there's reason for it, that applies to my job. 100%. I'm willing to look at all of that. Do I need to get my hair cut? Maybe someone says, gosh, your bangs are too long and I can't see your eyes. Well, that's not mean. That's just like, hey, maybe they're right. you
mhm,
know? So I think it's important to sort of take everything. I listen for a second. Usually your instinct is right. If you kind of think someone's being mean, they probably are, block them out. If there's something you can take from it that might help you do your job better or help you relate better to the people on camera, that's important to note. If you're going to be on camera doing even what you're doing, right? If
Mhm.
someone says, "Hey, maybe you'd be best served by adding this or changing this," not about your body, not about any of that, but maybe it's about something, listen to it and go, "Actually, that's a really good suggestion." Or, I don't care what they have to say, but hey, thanks for your opinion. I'm going to do
Yeah.
what I'm doing." There's no wrong way. It's only what matters to you and what you think is going to make you better as a host.
Yes, exactly. That's so well said. And of course, as a broadcaster, there's always, some qualities that you kind of need to kind of, let's just say, succeed in like your career field. Because of course, being a broadcaster is kind of let's just say, kind of like a competitive career in industry. But like, like in your opinion, like what are kind of some qualities you kind of need or should have as a broadcaster?
So, and I'll use when you say broadcaster, I'm going to assume you mean anyone that appears
Yeah.
on camera. Anyone that's going to appear on camera and talk on camera. So
Mm,
you're a broadcaster. You're broadcasting on a podcast. You are maybe doing YouTube, whatever it is. If you're on camera, you're somewhat of a broadcaster. You might not be a journalist, and I'm not speaking about you in particular,
mhm,
but anybody that's
yeah.
watching or listening right now. Anytime you're going to broadcast out, let's use these tips, right? You definitely want to present yourself well. And that doesn't, I'm not talking about how you dress or how you look or anything. You want to be authentic to who you are. So when you are presenting yourself, that's a 360 thing. That's how you speak. It's how your energy is. It is how you dress. I'm not going to tell you how to dress, but make sure you are dressed the way that authentic represents yourself. The more you feel like yourself, the more you look like yourself, the more you are able to communicate who your true self is. And that is authenticity. So that's my number one piece of advice for anyone who's looking to get into broadcasting. Sure. Live selling talent, which who I train people that sell things on camera. So in live stream shopping, but also anyone that broadcasting up. So that is a YouTube channel, that is doing an Instagram live. Be yourself, do all the things that are required so that you can feel like yourself, so that you can translate in a way that is real to you.
That is literally so real because of course, with different broadcasting things, there's multiple things you can present as broadcasting, not besides live TV. Like, of course, with live TV, a lot of people have college degrees to get into things, but there's so many things you can define broadcasting, like YouTube podcasts. Like, there's so many things, especially in 2024, where there's so many things that are being created that there's many definitions on how broadcasting is created, which is insane how technology is really transforming now, especially this generation. Of course, was a lot of people are obsessed with social media, like it's crazy. But do you have like a favorite, broadcast moment from all these years?
So, and I'll take it from, the moment I appeared on traditional live TV. And you're right also to say you have to encompass all the types of broadcast because live TV in 15 years might not even be a thing. Like we don't know
Mhm.
that, right? Like we
Yeah.
can see, but any kind of live broad. But so I'll take that, but I'll also take it up into my experience, obviously as a home shopping host and live streaming. A lot of people that work in broadcast, when they're asked that question, they often assume that people want to hear about the most famous person that
Oh,
they interviewed.
100%. Yeah.
Right? Because that
Mhm.
like, that's the wow factor, right? "Oh my gosh, you interviewed so and so or whatever," and there are people that I've interviewed and if I haven't personally, I've been in the same room as them because I worked for a morning show or
Mhm.
even in TV home shopping. We had a lot of celebrities, that would be on obviously home shopping because they would partner with products and all of that.
Mhm.
But I would say it was always the people and the stories, and it was the ability to, hear a real person's story. And I'll never remember any in particular because I interviewed thousands of people and
Yeah.
worked, tens of thousands of hours on television. But I just wanted to sort of point out that a lot of people think it's the famous people that are the most important to hear about, and it really never was for me. It was always meeting somebody who stepped out of the box or did something cool or created something or invented something or did a really good deed.
Mhm,
Those were always the most interesting to me. And it was the ability and the privilege to be able to share those stories with, millions of Canadians and anyone streaming nowadays. You don't even have to be in Canada to watch Canadian television,
mhm,
to be able to share the stories that I always found the most interesting and the most impact. But I've had a lot of good experiences, and there had wow experiences as well.
mhm. Yeah, that's like part of being a journalist is that like you experience something that not a lot of people experience. Like, of course, I've been in this doing this for almost about 3 years now, and a lot of people ask me like, "Who did you interview? Like, who did you love interviewing? Like, who's your favorite?" And I'm like, that is a hard question because I did interview a lot of people to keep track of how many people who were my favorites. There's honestly somebody I loved personally, and of course, with being someone that has social media, people see like, oh, she met this person, she interviewed this person, like she must be living her dream life. I wish I had her life, and like a lot. And personally, on the same boat as you because I'm like no matter if this person's has a million followers on their social media, they're so popular. Like a lot of people think, like you said, like, oh, that has to be your favorite interview. Like, of course, they're so famous, that has to be your favorite interview. But that's honestly not always the case. Of being a journalist, of course, you might interview someone so famous, but they might not be the best person, or they not might be the best interview that you had. Like, it could be not the most famous person, but they might be your favorite interview. It's always someone with a unique story that's doing so many things that can always be your best interview, your favorite interview that stuck out to you the most. It's not always the most famous person that has to be, your favorite interview that you've done or person that you met. There's so many things that people do that can really just hit home or stick out to you most rather than a famous person.
The easier question I think people could ask people like us is, what was your least favorite interview? Because those probably are the ones that are easy to stick in your head, right? Like the
Yeah.
time when I was hosting a cooking show, and part of the job was to get the host involved. So you have like your chef, right? And then you have, the host. And no one wants to just stand there and do nothing. So you always, and this, I teach this in my live selling course at livesellingschool.com as well, teaching people to be on camera and to partner with brands and affiliate marketing and sell products on camera is to be involved and to do. So I
Mhm.
remember a chef when I said, "Ooh, how about I cut a tomato?" And he said, "No." And I can only guess because he thought I wasn't going to do it properly, but that wasn't really the point. I mean, it's a tomato. How hard is it to cut a tomato? And
Mhm.
am I going to wreck the dish if I cut the tomato this thin instead of this? And of course, I'm not going to do it.
Mhm.
But he came across as not very friendly on camera, which is when I talk about presenting your authentic self. So maybe I caught him on a bad day, or maybe that was his personality is he didn't like to share. And so that was the image that was presented. So that I thought was very interesting. And yet you ask me who my favorite interview is, and I can't remember, but I remember that experience and I'll remember that day for the rest of my life.
Oh, like, I feel like a lot of your interviews that we done, I can probably come figure out an interview that I done on top of my head that I'm like, "Okay, why did I do that interview?" Like, I'm sure you done had those moments too, where I'm like, "Okay, this person probably had a bad day, or they're just not the best person," you know? Like, I feel like every journalist has kind of had one of those moments where they're like, okay, this interview I did, this was horrible. Like, this is like, why did I do this interview? Like I feel like a lot of people can kind of name it off the bat. Like, well, okay, what interview did I kind of dread of doing? Or what did I interview that I kind of not, enjoy the most? Because I'm sure like there's a bunch of them that people can like name right off the bat.
Just interviews, just general people. I mean,
Mhm.
I think about when I was, in school, I might not remember any of my classmates' name, but the person that did me wrong. it did me dirty, like stripped me or some stupid thing. I remember not only their first name, but I remember their last name. Like, I mean, it's just because those are the things that stick in your head. But I was thinking, you asked about my favorite interview, and then I kind of referred to experiences. And I've had so many, because part of my job, one of my many types of roles in my broadcast career, is I had a chance to also go on location. And
Oh, yeah.
so that could be anything from, working with a kid's summer camp where we focused on how to dribble properly, say that.
Mhm.
But I also had chances to do really cool things. Like I had a chance to fly in a fighter pilot jet for
Ooh.
the Canadian Snowbirds, and they're like a show kind of airplane troupe,
Mhm.
right? That are kind of part of the military, but they do shows, air
Oh,
shows.
yeah.
And so I had a chance to be in sitting beside the pilot, and they actually let me take the not like a steering wheel, but the
Oh,
controls,
yeah, yeah.
pilot controls. And I had a chance to go and we did like loop de loops and the whole thing. So like that was really cool that not a lot of people get to do. I had had a chance to, for charity, rappel down a building. So, like when the window washers, right? And they're going down and cleaning windows of a big
Mhm.
apartment building. That's the kind of thing I was in, but we were 20 stories up and I was wearing a latex Catwoman suit because the idea behind this concept for charity is you dress like a superhero because the idea is if you're raising money, you're like a
Mhm.
superhero. So live on TV, I'm rappelling down a building in stiletto heels and a latex Catwoman suit. So those are the
Woah.
experiences when we talk about the privileges of being on television. Yes, and 100% it's meeting great people and hearing great stories. But I would be remiss if I didn't sort of mention that I had a chance to try some really, really cool things as well that most people, that's the thing that they want to hear about as well, is because it's like they would never know what that would be like and what was it like. And so I think, to be able to experience those kinds of things is one of the perks of the job of doing really and having the career that I've had for the decades that I have.
Mhm. You're exactly right. Because of course, with being in the broadcasting industry, it does actually come with good actually perks and different stories to come with. But like sometimes like I'm sure it's the same for you as well. Like what did I do to deserve to get these good moments of my career? Like if let's just say like I had this moment, I met this celebrity and to interview them, for example, and I'm thinking to myself like if I didn't join this industry or do what I'm doing, would I have this opportunity of interviewing this person or do this story, for example? So it makes me think like how much these kind of moments are really just so special to be on top of the Empire State Building, for example, or traveling all over the world, do different things. It just makes me think like, oh my gosh, it's exactly like how do I get these moments of being in this broadcasting industry, even with it being so competitive?
I would say so this is advice for anything. Say yes, right?
Oh,
If I
for
had
sure.
if when I was asked to audition, 23 years ago for television, having never been experienced in broadcast, like I'd appeared on television because I would sing, right,
Mhm,
my music on that morning show that asked me to audition. But if I had said no when they said, "How about you come and audition?" If I had said no, and I'd said no because I thought, "Well, I'm not good enough. I don't have the experience. Maybe I should go to school or whatever to learn how to do it." Then I never would have the experiences I've had right now. Now, who knows what I'd be doing? Maybe I'd be sitting at Madison Square Gardens singing. Like I don't know. You pick a path and you move that way. But I think if you listen to what the world is offering you,
mhm.
you have and you're willing to say yes, even if you're not sure if you're ready, but you have to still be sort of interested. You can't just say yes just because someone offers you something. But if
Yeah.
there's something that says, "Ooh, I never thought of that before. Maybe that would be cool." If you're willing to say yes, then the world can open up to you. And that's when I started my live selling school, it was really because of that. Here I am doing regular broadcasts, then I move into TV home shopping, and then I see that there's so much popularity around live stream shopping and video commerce and social commerce. And then I start to think, well, gosh, I'm also a media trainer, right? For all commodities, like you said
Mhm.
in my intro. So by commodities, I mean like fashion and beauty, makeup tutorials, like all of that. That's I'm experienced in not only hosting those kinds of shows, but training people
Mhm.
to be on camera and to sell and to partner with brands who will pay them to do that kind of content. And I thought, why don't I start a business that
Mhm.
allows me to tap into the strengths and on past experiences and help catapult people into doing what I have done for a living to the tune, like you said, of tens of millions of dollars. Why not do that? Because someday there is going to be a time where someone doesn't want to see me on camera, like
Mhm.
on screen, and that's fine, right? Because like we
Mhm.
move on, right? But if I can take my special secret sauce, what I'm able to do and help others maybe say yes to something they didn't think they'd ever be able to do, but it's sitting in the back of their mind. "Oh, Dawn says maybe I could go and sell makeup on a live stream partnering with, let's pick a brand, Drunk Elephant. Let's say that. Let's pretend. Ooh, that might be really cool. Then I want to be the person that can help teach people do that. I can't guarantee that people will get the brand opportunities, but what I can tell you is that when you say yes, when you're willing to learn a new skill that can help lead you in that direction, well, then they're more likely to ask you because you've taken that time, because you've learned a new skill, because you said yes, they're more likely to offer that opportunity to you than to the person who doesn't even want to step into the room.
Ooh, such great advice. I seriously love it. And I know we're running out of time, but I want to thank you so much for coming on. It was such a pleasure to talk with you. I love filming this episode, and I hope everyone can take away as much as I did. And make sure to go check out the live selling. It's so great. I'm definitely gonna sign up because I definitely need to learn more about like being on camera, all the stuff that you're doing. But I really appreciate you coming on, taking the time, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of your day. And thank you so much, John, for coming on.
And no problem. And thank you. And by the way, you know what? Just because you said that, I want to offer anyone's listening a special discount code for my course. So
Ooh.
live 25, enter that at the checkout at livesellingschool.com. Live 25 will score you 25% off. And I want to offer that exclusively to anybody that is watching right now or listening. If you're interested, just go to live